Well, hello, children. We're back here with another video, and of course, that involves the WWE. Because what else are you going to talk about? You want me to go over the worst world champions from Ring of Honor? No. Impact? Probably. And WWE is just better because it's longer. They're household names, and it's just probably more agreeable for people to get into a conversation. So let's go over it. We're going to go over the worst champions of every year from 2009 to 2019, because of course 2020 is not done yet, and a completed calendar year works. Now, of course, we're going to go over the worst world champions, and that of course goes to Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy held the WWE Championship for under a month after literally a pyrotechnics incident, after just beating Edge and Triple H in a triple threat match back in 2008 of Armageddon on pay-per-view. Mad pop, mad excitement. I was excited, my 9-year-old self, because of course I was seeing my favorite wrestler win the world's title after literally being teased over the course of this feud with Triple H, holding that brass ring and struggling. Well, his first pay-per-view, a ladder match against Edge, one of the better rivals of his career, and he just lose because they wanted to force a brother rivalry feud with him and Matt Hardy, and he lost it at the Rumble. He didn't even finish his feud with Matt until Backlash. So he got Matt a forgettable win on pay-per-view at WrestleMania 25. Wow. Well, of course, Cena also held the World Heavyweight title, but that was besides the point over his history. Jeff was just brief. It was dumb to just force an unnecessary storyline because Matt lost a world title the exact same night. So it was kind of dumb. It was just dumb in that aspect that they would do something like that. Next up, of course, 2010. The worst world champion in 2010 was, of course, oh god, Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger, just that forgettable guy from, I forgot, was it called Blue Mountain? I forgot. That college football team from one of those comedic shows. That's what he looks like. He looks like everything you wanted to forget from the late 2000s that probably bullied you, and always wore silly bands, probably those slap metal wristbands that people used to wear, and a lot of high top sneakers. That's what Jack Swagger back in 2010 looked like. They they had him in a winning streak. He held the ECW world title until losing it to Christian. They didn't do anything with him in 2009 until they gave him the briefcase back at 26 of WrestleMania. And you let him beat Jericho by cashing in on SmackDown. And you had him have these forgettable ass feuds. You make him look like a geek against Cena. You make him look like a pussy against Randy Orton. You make him look like a me against, I think, Rey Mysterio. I think he was also feuding with Edge at that time for a shot for the World's Heavyweight title. And then, yeah, he just lost it in a Fatal 4-Way. He did get a rematch against Mysterio at the next pay-per-view. They did nothing with him afterwards. You see, that was a complete flop. He's taken more seriously on AEW, but I know he's going to lose come Fyter Fest, so it makes no difference. There was also Batista's run. I would put it there, but at least they still treat him like a legitimate superstar, and he kept feuding with the top guy in the company, so I would count it as such. Like, as soon as, like, Swagger lost, he started acting like a bitch as soon as, like, Kane obviously beat up his brother. He beat up his brother. He took out his brother. He took out his brother. He left. The Undertaker, obviously not in a vegetative state. Now, I was watching SmackDown at that time, back when watching some Friday Night SmackDown was exciting, but kind of crap because always Teddy Long or anybody else on the commentary or whatever match striker tries to actually block out that he says a cuss word every 27 minutes whenever a surprise happens. They're always saying that The Undertaker is in a vegetative state. Jesus Christ, guys. He's just saying that he has a concussion or something. Not that. It makes me feel like, oh my god, The Undertaker can't move? Just say that somebody knocked out The Undertaker backstage and we don't know who the attacker is or something. Allow something with the urn. Kane, I'm not going to put him on the list because at least Kane was a competent world champion, actually winning his feud with The Undertaker. And that's a sad thing to say, seeing it took nearly over most of his career to finally win a world title. Thanks, he didn't win a world title until technically 2008, but we don't count the ECW Championship anymore. So I want to say 1998. So that's at least something. In 2011, I'm sorry, bro, I gotta put him on this list, and I love the hell out of him, but Rey Mysterio was the worst world champion in 2011. It is out of circumstance. It's not because it was his fault in general. It was literally a tournament to see who would be the new WWE Championship after, of course, the overrated. Of course, amazing pay-per-view that was Money in the Bank 2011. CM Punk obviously left, changed the business forever, or he just made himself more over than anybody else in the company, and for like a brief stint made WWE mainstream for a brief stint. So as soon as he was off TV for like probably I think a week, I think it was like a few weeks until they thought, oh my god, Rey Mysterio did it. He finally beat The Miz. He finally did his dream. He finally became world champion. Can't wait for him to probably lose the title to a bigger star, but it's gonna be great. I'm gonna wait. I can't believe this moment, and he loses it after just awkwardly getting challenged by John Cena after a literal shower of joy by the locker room. Like that awkward silence. Like I'm gonna win my belt back. Sorry, Ray, but fuck you. It's just I'm sorry, folks, but if that isn't the biggest slap to the face to when the longer star is here, that's the most beloved, and he got good reigns. I mean, sure, he wasn't the best world heavyweight champion. He just lost it to Kane after just cashing in, and he had kind of a weak. He kind of had, and he literally had a great reign with the Intercontinental Championship back in '09. So it's kind of disappointing. So, yeah, this is one of the shortest reigns probably in history. With him not even holding it for over 24 hours, he lost it as soon as he just defended it. So, yeah, kind of depressing after pretty much one of the better years of the 2010s. Uh, we practically can't count 2012, but I guess we'll just account for the World's Heavyweight Championship. And by technicality, there was like 3 world heavyweight champions. There was, of course, Sheamus, Daniel Bryan. No, yeah, the Big Show. There was also the Big Show, and the weakest out of all of them is Daniel Bryan because he lost in 18 seconds anonymously to kick off, of course, Daniel Bryan's reign to the top, or whatever the hell you think. What culture says that actually makes any coherent sense on how you think superstars are actually made in a business. It's just so agitating to just hear them talk like it's goddamn Sports Center, even though you guys are talking about fake fighting. It's just depressing. Yes, Daniel Bryan was pretty much the weakest world champion over the year. Because you came off beating Mark Henry and Big Show in a steel cage match. You expect to be taken more competently to handle your opponent for at least over 10 minutes. Sheamus took care of that because he made out with AJ Lee. And over that year, everybody, I'm not disrespecting her as a whole, I understand this was a gimmick. Nearly anybody and any female could be treated as a thought in pro wrestling, but if we were rating women like a tier level, AJ Lee would belong to the streets. You guys could be like, she's a queen, she's hot, oh my god, she's cute. She made out with Kane, Dolph Ziggler, John Cena, Daniel Bryan. maybe Vince McMahon, and CM Punk in 1 year. Are you kidding me? Nearly anything that turned the tides on Raw was practically anything John Laurinaitis was doing, whatever CM Punk was doing, his dumbass heel turn, Brock Lesnar coming back, and of course, whenever AJ Lee connecting her lips to somebody. I wish it was me. Obviously, when I was younger, and I see a hot undersized chick just making out with a couple buff men, I obviously want to hit somebody illegally with a steel chair on the head and take that kissing session. For obvious reason. AJ Lee is beautiful as hell, but she would belong to the streets. 2013. We of course had this was to be the last year the World's Heavyweight title would ever be active, and of course CM Punk's reign would end as WWE champion to the hands of The Rock. That I thought was the worst business decision ever, other than to gather headlines to, I guess, make a rematch to build something for WrestleMania 29. There was of course I wanted to account like this is probably the second time he's going to be on my list. Goddamn Daniel Bryan. He had like 3 reigns. He kept hot potatoing the belt. Like one time he won it, and everybody was so excited back at SummerSlam after he finally got over the hump. He finally got out of Team Hell No, that ridiculous dumbass tag team that I thought had its stints where it was funny, and then had its stints where I thought, why in the hell they keep doing this to me? And yeah. So he finally won it at SummerSlam. He loses it at SummerSlam. He gains it back at the back of Night of Champions, but then I think it was because of a double pin or something. So it was vacant. Randy would hold it for an extensive amount of time at Hell in a Cell from Shawn Michaels, and then Daniel Bryan would hold it again until WrestleMania 30. Took that much time out of the false finishes. Of course, a forceful ripoff of a corporation faction to let Daniel Bryan get over. And of course, the factor of nobody was really connecting because Daniel Bryan's title reigns felt completely rushed to the factor of trying to get him over. And I always hated that because I thought over the time that when Roman Reigns was getting shoved down our throat, we were just getting a forced down underdog. You know how bad it is getting a forced down top guy down our throat? Because at least that's supposed to get a company carried. Nobody wants a forced down underdog, and that's why Shorty G fails on the main roster. And Daniel Bryan's good now because at least they treat him like he's a legitimate guy now on the roster. But if you were watching back in 2013, this would just get your head done. Like, dumb feud with Battleground, then Randy would get in a forgettable feud with the world title until unifying it against Cena. Like, he feuded with the Big Show. And why the Big Show was babyface, don't know why. In 2014, of course, we had some magical times. Of course, Brock Lesnar would have the best squash match ever. And of course, that would be practically it. Just Cena, Bryan, and Lesnar and Orton held the world title that same year because they unified it back in TLC. So, yeah, of course, we had Daniel Bryan being the worst of it because he finally won it at Mania. And he beat Kane at Extreme Rules after a dumbass match with him taking choke slams off the steel steps, choke slams off the... He gets injured anyway, and I think it was a match against Ryback, not a match against Kane. But he suffered an injury, and he was out with a neck injury when he came back until like late 2014. So all that build-up for all that pop, and people think this was the best moment of WrestleMania 30. Out of a generally, the biggest moment of the pay-per-view was just Undertaker losing his streak. No one practically cared about Daniel Bryan. This is mean as hell, but it's just coming out of my opinion. Out of what I was waiting for every WrestleMania was practically what was going to be the top matches, what titles were going to be defended, what's going to be the feud, and of course, who's going to face off against The Undertaker this year. Brock Lesnar had a chance because he was treated as a fucking threat after coming back with matches with Triple H. He had He had crazy ass matches with John Cena and CM Punk. So it's like this new UFC style Brock Lesnar that has the most limited OP moveset ever. How is he going to do against The Undertaker? And he beats the ever living piss out of him with The Undertaker looking old as hell. It's just depressing that you guys keep thinking like I'm going to remember Daniel Bryan just hoisting up them two big ass belts that are obviously too heavy for him, just shouting yes, and people won't remember it because Connor the Crusher. So for that aspect, no disrespect to Connor though. Yeah, that's practically it. Daniel Bryan was the weakest world champion, not even holding it for that much. But he made a message, even though there was plenty of other wrestlers that made bigger messages and had way more behind them than Daniel Bryan. Next up was, of course, Sheamus in 2015. We literally had a tournament after Rollins had like an 8-month-old reign with the title. And as much as one of the people wanted to like bring up that, of course, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins had an underwhelming reign for his first title reign, because they've been teasing this because he's been Money in the Bank for like 8 months or so at that point. So at least he had a faction. He won legitimate matches, and he was at least treated like he was the top wrestler on the roster. So, and he was a dual champion as well. So you can't tell me Rollins wasn't the MVP, and he did win Wrestler of the Year, Superstar of the Year at that case at the Slammies, and that would be the last Slammies you would see in a minute until they forget why they bring a award show in the first place. And Roman Reigns would hold it for under a minute after just getting cashed in. So that's just depressing. So as soon as that happens, Sheamus holds the gold and Elite's with the authority because, of course, Sheamus doesn't like Roman and the authority doesn't like Roman because, of course, Roman's babyface. So Roman Reigns is on the list because he would win it back literally just at TLC. No, he would retain it at TLC. He won it back on Raw. On literally the last good episodes of Raw. And just Sheamus wins it for no reason. He had 5:15 on his shirt because it took that long to beat him. Edge took shorter, and Cena kicked out of 2 spears after having an elimination chamber. There was literally like a multi-man tournament lasting after Rollins tore his ankle, his ACL, and somehow they just do this dumb BS. It's super dumb. Sheamus forced himself too much to get over out of just pure corny mockery of an upper mid-carder that should have more mid-card belts than he does world titles. And it was just dumb, in my opinion. He's literally just he's just an orange, he's just a bland, like, with that dumbass mohawk, he just looks like one of them cheap toothbrushes you get from the 99-cent store. And he comes around just holding the world title, like, are you serious? Like, again, in from 2010, he did nothing when he was world champion, except be transitional. And they finally were about to do it because, finally about to make him a world champion again because he's babyface and he won the Rumble. Out of no reason for him to turn babyface. Other than, like, let's rip off Finlay, but he's taller and he looks more of a top guy. So I guess that's the equivalency of why he was even getting that much screen time to begin with, because Sheamus actually kept himself in shape. Other than Finlay, that always, even in his younger years back in WCW, just looked like a grandpa that can fight. So the theme song is totally worth it. If you guys are that old as me, you remember Finlay's old theme song. So yeah. 2016. Of course, Roman Reigns would lose the world title to Triple H. And Triple H would be probably the worst world champion of 2016. Of course, Roman Reigns did lose it at the Rumble after just winning it back just weeks ago, but at least that involved still the McMahons trying to screw him over, and it was a Royal Rumble match, so obviously he wasn't going to retain. So we were just expecting who would take it off him, even though they were trying to save him to at least last until the Final Four. So, yeah, as soon as that happened, Triple H just wins it. And the only feud that he won was Dean Ambrose back at Roadblock. The guy was obviously trying to build himself legitimacy, only pinning like lower to top mid carders out of only pinning Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler on Raw. He held it for like 70 days. This is he's like a 13-time world champion now at this point. And over all this time, he just does this. It's depressing. The only reason they would do this we need somebody legitimate, and thanks Rollins is gone, and most of our plans are ruined. I guess we could just get Triple H to give the belt to Rollins to get him over. I mean Roman to get him over. There was also Ambrose, but at least he had better matches than his forgettable match at SummerSlam, and practically Rollins would at least have as a cash-in. So that was something. But Triple H was just forgettable as a whole, because that was just for a transitional time. And Rollins was already a world champion, so it wouldn't hit like anybody else that gets cashed in after just winning the title. But Triple H was just super underwhelming, and it was such for a predictable phase, because everybody and their mother, their great-grandmother, and of course their great-great-grandmother stuck in a cement-filled casket with just jiggers and ticks and everything that can eat human flesh, knowing that Triple H was about to get Roman Reigns over predictably, just to fill up a Cowboy stadium. And that could be easily said and done in a goddamn preseason game. So congrats to the WWE in that aspect, even though nobody cared. Next up, 2017. This is an obvious one. This is on two lists, by the way, and we're only 2 years left. Jinder Mahal, and of course, well, no, not Jinder, Bray Wyatt. It's Bray Wyatt. What's wrong with you people? What's really wrong with you people? Jinder Mahal ain't shit, but at least they try to make him a competent champion in the aspect that they give him legitimate wins against the topper stars on SmackDown. So he at least looked the part. He had a good build. His arsenal wasn't much, but at least it looked like he can take out somebody. Other than just having the Singh brothers be used as fodder. Because, of course, WWE doesn't have ways to make heels look actually be made strong. Other than outside interference of manager or at least cronies. Unless you're Brock Lesnar. It's literally unless you're Brock Lesnar that you're heel and you can actually beat the shit out of somebody without help. So that's dumb in that aspect. And Bray literally lost his luster come 2014. He had this whole feud with the Shield. That was literally the best feud of the year next to his feuds he had with the Usos. And all the stuff he was doing to build up his cryptic promo style. All the stuff that he did too well, except win. That was literally his fault. He doesn't win against Ambrose, Roman, Cena, the Usos, the Shield. Barely any of these feuds he won except probably beating Jericho. And the weakest thing of all, they didn't even make it compelling for him to win other than putting him in a Chambers match. And then they just dropped the belt to Orton. And Orton dropped it to Jinder. So it was like a chain of events that sucked ass. and nobody was expecting Orton to pin him at Mania of all places. So all this build over 3 years of him being built up as the top heel monster ripoff of The Undertaker, fat, with the dreads, he looks like Knuckles, an albino Knuckles, or that female, or thinks JoJo's with him, that little Echidna girl from Sonic Adventure. It's just so bad in the way they just made this house. His house caught on fire. His failure for the Sister Abigail built up that's been built up from the media for months to go absolutely nowhere. Make it Bray Wyatt dress in drag, or literally any other person that proclaims that they're technically chosen to be, they chose themselves to be female or something like that. Or I can't say it. It's June. It was just bad. It was just borderline bad. Next up, 2018. We of course also had the Universal Championship and the WWE Championship. I wanted to put Finn Balor on this list. I'm not accounting injuries. I don't want to. That's why Rollins wasn't on the list in 2015. He at least had a lengthy reign. Balor was built up unnecessarily strong after just coming out, and somehow he just gets a shoulder injury just out of nowhere. So I'm not counting that. As much as that sucks, I felt like the push was overstaying its welcome, and Balor just went to purgatory immediately. Now he's on NXT. So it's 2018. Who won the Universal Championship in 2018? Da 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 da. There was, of course, AJ Styles with a lengthy reign. Brock Lesnar held the Universal title until dropping it to, oh my God, oh my God, Roman Reigns. Over all this buildup of 2018, all the things, Brock Lesnar beat Goldberg back at Mania 33, and failed to get Roman over back at Mania in a really crappy match. SummerSlam. Finally, until he got leukemia, he was in recession, y'all, and somehow he just dropped the title, and then it went into an awkward feud with Rollins and Ambrose until Ambrose released. So it was just a domino effect of complete shit that left Raw in garbage, even though we were finally going to get a champion that could stay on TV for more than just an occasion when the top 4 pay-per-views are about to be airing. So it's just poor. It was just sad. It was depressing. Because AJ had a really lengthy reign with the world title that lasted until November on the SmackDown that Daniel Bryan turned heel on. But at least those were 2 competent world champions. Roman Reigns was just abrupt. It was sad, and it was off. Of course, it means that he couldn't control. So he has to hit the list. As sad as it is, he was the only world champion out of like only 4 championship world title changes on WWE at the time. And Brock's and Daniel Bryan was pretty much the longest. Next up was, of course, 2019. Now, I ripped on him over my reviews because I thought Kofi Kingston wasn't shit. They were just doing this for a pity party, and of course, no one really cares that he's world champion. Other than you were just a replacement. And they don't even they sell that in the fact in some storylines, but other than that, no one should practically care that he's world champion. It's an accomplishment of a lifetime that you win a world title, but by God, I can care less. In 2019, of course, Rollins held the Universal title twice. Brock Lesnar, won the world title. Was Universal Champion and WWE Champion in the same year. But Brock literally had the worst championship reign. As much as I want to give Kofi Kingston shit, and he still kept his babyface bullshit New Day gimmick for a main event championship, it made everything so underwhelming. But at least he was at least looked upon strong. Brock lost the same way on pay-per-view, but we know who's going to hit the list. You guys know it's not Rollins, it's not Kofi, it's not Bryan, it's obviously not Lesnar. So, it's going to be Bray Wyatt. That was the worst world champion of 2019. Over all the people that hit the list, Bray Wyatt was the most built up over most of his failures over his swamp ripoff Undertaker fat ass gimmick. He comes around with another fat ass gimmick, but this time he wears a mask with a shadowy plague, with all the lighting, the decapitated head of his former gimmick on a lamp. All this stuff that symbolizes that he's a different character, a different world, and a different plane of how and a different behavior. Except he acts scary by tilting his head, over no selling moves, and then he gets his first shot for the world title, and he wins in Hell in a Cell on DQ. So he wouldn't even win back the world title until like November of Crown Jewel, and he wouldn't even lose, and he would lose the title at like pay-per-view. It's depressing too, man. Oh my god, he lost the world title to a 50-year-old Goldberg. A Goldberg that could barely even lift up The Undertaker. It was so depressing. The only thing I could just do is just replay his squash match he had with Dolph Ziggler. Other than that, he came around with his entire build, and just for a no-selling gimmick that already got already screwed up, if we were just gonna make a DQ finish and then make him lose it to the next pay-per-view after all this build-up, and he comes around underwhelmingly still with the same inconsistent 50-50 double fucking gimmick and booking, and now we're still trying to do this cinematography bullshit to build up Eddie's strong character in his own world, and it's not going to work because it's just going to be pulled up as corny, and he literally had to look good forcibly by WWE standards off cinematography, not by his own style, not by his own gimmick, or not by the connection with the fans. And I really don't give a shit about Bray Wyatt being world champion again if he wins at Extreme Rules and whatever the hell swamp fire bullshit gimmicky match that WWE is going to bring up that actually they think is going to save their depleting subscriptions of the WWE network that they literally had to make a free version. And that is my worst WWE World Champions from 2009 to 2019. Comment down below who you think, in your opinion, was the worst world champion of every year. Please, I would like to hear your opinions down in the comment section. Either way, I will read it because I have nothing else to do. But you do. And that is liking the video, commenting down below, subscribing, and helping me reach over 30. That's literally your job, and I have to wait for that. Thanks for watching.